Welcome to Something to Say, where we bring voices from diverse backgrounds who will share their unique stories and perspectives on finding their passion and provide insights on how you can find yours. Join us as host Greg DeShields guides us through this enlightening journey.
Welcome to another episode of Something to Say podcast, a unique platform that amplifies the voices of individuals from various backgrounds sharing their passions. I'm your host, Greg DeShields, and I'm excited to bring you a unique podcast episode of Something to Say, which is entitled Education, Past, Present, and Future. Today, we're thrilled to introduce Jeffrey Montague, a former Associate Vice Dean of Temple University School of Sport, Tourism, and Hospitality Management, fondly known as STHM. Over time, education has evolved in response to changes in technology, societal values, and global interconnectedness. The traditional teacher-centered approach of the past has given way to more dynamic, student-centered, and technology-driven models of today and tomorrow, as education aims to be better prepared for individuals in the future. Jeff is a former Associate Vice Dean of Temple University, STHM, and has over 28 years of administrative experience in higher education. A graduate of Cheney University of Pennsylvania, which is the oldest historically Black university in America, Jeff went on to complete a master's degree at Temple University before joining its faculty and administration. One of Jeff's philosophies is to make customer service a priority for all clients, students, and their extended families. He believes the ability to provide personal service has a vital place in our community, especially in an age of increased technology. Currently, Jeff is innovative, creating Montague Made Consulting, a sole proprietorship company that has a focus of brand management, strategic innovative planning in hospitality, hotel development, public and private capitalization, curriculum development, and a diversity of thought. In addition, he is a partner of Real Property Capital United Advisors, a group of investors focusing on property development and investment. Jeff challenges himself to stay connected to the STHM alumni population. Ultimately, developing fundraising opportunities initiated by Jeff has created several endowments for students, resulting in 2 endowments bearing his name. Jeff's motto, and I've heard it a million times to students, is in STHM, I don't make friends, I make alumni. Finally, his love of Cheney University of Pennsylvania, Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, and his personal friendships inspires him to be the best one could be. He feels philanthropy that helps bring our minority youth exposure to what could be is his current driving force to help make a difference in our community through development and fundraising efforts. Wow, that's a lot. So let's dive into it, Jeff. Welcome to Something to Say.
Thank you, Gregory. It's nice to see you and in this new venture that you are having. This is fantastic.
Well, I thank you for joining us and giving the opportunity to be interviewed on Something to Say. You know, you're not only one of my favorite people, and obviously a friend, a former boss, a mentor, but I feel so lucky to be able to have this conversation because I know there are a lot of people who would ask the same of you. So thanks for giving me that opportunity today.
Yeah. We've had a lot of years together, Greg.
So you've made such a huge impact on so many people, but I'm sure many people continue to ask the question, who are you? So I have a couple of get to know you questions. I have a lot of questions for you, but we'll start with some get to know you questions to kind of share some insights to our audience and for them to get a bit of a deeper dive into who you are. So if you're
Okay.
ready, I'll give you your first question.
Yes.
All right, so if you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would that be and why?
Well, that's a very good question, obviously. Actually, it would be Nelson Mandela. And it would be Nelson Mandela for a very obvious reason, that whole situation with apartheid and being placed in prison for all of those years, and then comes out and has forgiveness in his heart. I would really like to sit down with him and say, how do you develop this never forget, but you forgive kind of mantra. I just think that that is one strong person, and I'd love to sit down and have dinner with him and just have a conversation.
Well, actually, it would probably be three of you because in our very second episode, Karen Aaron from the Green Book Experience said exactly the same thing. So I have a
Really?
feeling that that would be a bigger table than you realize.
Yeah. Well, let's do it.
So let's dive a little bit deeper into who you are. So the first
Uh-oh.
question is without any doubt some of the big priorities in your life. So how did you meet your other half?
Oh my goodness. All right. So, actually, something that you may not have known. Um, I met my wife in high school. I was
And for the
in
audience, we should say your wife's name is
Robin,
Robin.
Robin Matthias Montague. I met Robin in high school, and I was in the 11th grade. She was in 10th grade. I was the presumptive star quarterback of West Philadelphia High School. She was the captain of the majorettes, which twirled the batons and all those kinds of things. And one of our friends, Darlene Huggins, introduced us. And, when people say that love at first sight thing, I don't know if she loved me at first sight, but I loved her at first sight. And, we've been married now 42 years. So we've been together 52 years.
Wow.
So she might say 55, but I'll stay with 52.
It's interesting listening to you talk about her, how the smile like begins on your face and it doesn't stop throughout the whole entire conversation. So,
She still likes me too, Greg.
so let's talk about education. Like, how
Yeah.
did you decide to become an educator?
Let me tell you, that's an interesting question. Not necessarily a good question, right? That's an interesting question because I was working at Children's Seashore House, which is connected to Children's Hospital in rehabilitation. I was the director of rehab services for Children's Hospital and Children's Seashore House back in the late 70s, I mean, mid 80s, right? And I ended up coming to Temple to teach a pediatric rehab course to nursing students. From that class, someone walked up to me and said, "How would you like to join the faculty or staff at Temple University?" So I said, "Well, I'm not sure. Let's talk." So I went, I met people, and they gave me an offer that I couldn't refuse. And that doesn't mean financially. That was more or less going back and get my advanced degrees for free, basically. So that's how I got into it. And then once I found it and I loved it, I never left.
Wow. I actually think back on my experience becoming involved with Temple. It took a whole lot longer than what you've described in your experience. So,
Yeah, yeah. It's a lot of twists and turns in that, but Temple University was a good space for me. I had just had my daughter, Blair, who's now 39. And when I was working in a pediatric rehab facility, I was surrounded and involved with multiple kids with multiple anomalies, physical, mental disabilities. And it had me in there for 13 years. And then I found myself evaluating my own child when I got home from work. And that was a little bit stressful for me.
hmm,
So the opportunity to go to Temple came at the right time. So I jumped in. I never looked back.
wow. So, what is the most fulfilling aspect as an educator?
I think inspiring young minds, young, youthful, impressionable young minds are normally formed by their parents from birth through high school. Whatever your parents say, you do. When you get into college, you get into higher education, you have a different view about what you're doing because you have this newfound freedom. So in that newfound freedom, they grow from freshmen to seniors. And I was only teaching seniors during my teaching time at Temple University.
Hmm,
And I thought that I could inspire young minds to make their own decisions and not necessarily follow the status quo, is what I called it. So I called myself, and I got the name, that I was a disruptive innovator in higher education. So I believed in disrupting the norm and creating scenarios to get students to think out of the box, and it proved very beneficial.
Wow. So I know as you engage in conversations with seniors and you prepare them for engaging in their professional career, this phrase, the inner circle, tends to come up. How big is your inner circle? And what is
Woo!
the circle?
Wow. I'd have to say between 5 and 7,000 people.
Wow.
Yeah. And the alums that I don't make friends, I make alumni. So, when they became alumni, we became friends over years. And I can tell you that the majority of them are in touch with me through birthdays, through Father's Days, through just regular communication, through text, and through social media. And believe it or not, I can say that there's got to be at least 500 plus to have my personal cell number, because I'm still mentoring a lot of those students that are now 50 years old and have a family. So it's really interesting. My circle is huge. I might even have grandchildren now from those people that I don't really know much about. So yeah, the inner circle's very, very large.
Wow. So we know that your career has certainly evolved and you're in a different phase of it now. So what has been the most memorable moment, either of your career to this point or what you kind of envision as you go forward in the future?
Retirement.
I can't put that
And I'm
word together with your name. I'm sorry. I still just struggle with it.
because I'm pseudo retired, right? So I say retirement because I have a lot of friends, Greg, and a lot of people too. They never make it to this stage, right? So to me, I didn't have a goal to get to retirement. I had a goal to just get through life, educate people, be the best person that I could be, and then when that time came, just enjoy that portion of life. So the highlight of what I've done over the years was getting to retirement, because I grew up in West Philadelphia. I have friends that didn't make it through high school, didn't make it through college. Some never went to college. I ended up going to several universities, and I think this is a huge milestone to get to and enjoy retirement. So this is the highlight as far as I'm concerned.
Wow. Very impressive. All right, so this particular question and, putting together an interview for you really challenged me to think of a question that had a lot of complexity to it, and that would certainly be something that would stimulate thought. So, here's your last question before we move on and get into some discussion around education. Tell me something you think is true that almost nobody agrees with you on.
If we stay on education, almost no one in the academy agrees with me on this. I do not believe that you have to have textbooks in a classroom for a student to learn. Now, while saying that, people are saying, what? No textbooks? Of course you need it for maybe microeconomics or for accounting.
Hmm.
But simulated ideas of helping people see what they learn and discuss what they can learn, to me, is much more important. So in the academy, across the globe, in every college and university in the country, everybody used textbooks. Some of those textbooks are rewritten 10 times. So they could have been written in the 40s.
Hmm.
So what makes a new edited textbook special? Nothing. So I think that no one in the academy agrees with me that you can teach without a textbook. That doesn't mean you can't use examples and real up to date examples, global examples, domestic examples that you can take into a classroom that is just like reading a textbook, but presenting it for idealistic thought. And I think nobody in the academy agrees with me on that.
Wow. But what it does do is confirm that disruptor spirit that you have when it comes to education. So,
Yeah, yeah, I'm pretty sure I've been called worse, but disruptor is what I've been using to describe myself.
so let's just stick in that voice around education. There's three questions I'd like to get some of your insights on. So, what are some of the notable trends or development that you are seeing in education?
Well, the one that's very difficult for anybody to understand and describe is artificial intelligence. I think artificial intelligence, it actually, well, I can't say it mirrors my thought, but artificial intelligence is going to have students not needing textbooks. They're going to just go to this massive system and it'll write a paper for them. Back in the day, we had something called Turnitin. You would write a paper, and if you copied somebody's information, I'd take the paper, copy, put it in, turn it in, and it would tell me where they plagiarized.
Right.
Well, with AI, I don't know how they're going to control that. So to me, I think that's the one of the most significant developments in higher education, along with pricing. I really do think that college education is way too expensive when a lot of people are choosing the entrepreneurial route or a trade school route or going into hospitality or going into sports and working their way up through the system. So if higher education doesn't regulate its cost, I really think that higher education over, not maybe in my lifetime, will slowly diminish in its value.
Mm. You can't overprice it. It really has to be something that is contributory to who you are in a way that you can afford it and build upon it as you go on.
Yeah, if you go and you pay, my daughter went to University of Maryland College Park. Let's just say the tuition ended up being 100,000, 120,000. And if you go to something like a parent's loan or you borrow that money, you pay that interest. So
Mm,
that doubles the loan. So now you're talking $250,000. So now if I left that on my daughter, how could she get a job right out of school that's going to help her pay those loans, live by herself, and all the other pleasures of life? I think the system is not good for the middle and lower class people. Those in those that are wealthy can afford that because they've already put together a trust fund. But most people in this country can't afford higher education. And then you're paying for it for the next 25 to 30 years of your life before you see any breathing room. Then you get married, then you have children. I think college education needs to regulate itself.
mm.
I really do.
So I want to get some of your additional thoughts around this thought of misconceptions. Are there some misconceptions that you feel exist in higher ed that perhaps you'd like to kind of clear up?
Yeah, I have to tread lightly here, even though I'm retired. I really believe that a student grows up. They become who they really are in higher education. And I really think that higher education, and I can only specifically speak of Cheney and Temple, keeps you in a box. They want you to follow the norms that they create. And if you step outside of that norm, you violated the code. That's really a tough situation because everybody I know that goes to college violates the code. So I don't think that higher education should govern the student in a holistic approach.
Mhm.
I think you govern them in an education and an academic approach, and then they grow as a person. If they make mistakes, they make mistakes. And I think higher education should just let that process happen. And I'm sure a lot of places do, but I think that that education itself should not try to guide the students' growth and development, only their mind in terms of education, if that makes sense.
And so much of that experience is beyond just what you get in the classroom. It's the relationships that you build, the service that you perform, the mindset of your values, and that can't just be dictated by the institution. It really
It
is
it,
the
it
environment
can't.
you're
And
in.
correct. And I think the classroom environment should nurture that growth
Right.
instead of, you sit over here and you sit over there, and I think they should nurture that growth, and that becomes almost like a community in itself.
Mm,
And if you grow that community, they get to break down stereotypes, they get to break down exclusiveness, and become more of a team of people that get to know each other. And some of those relationships can last a lifetime. So that's why I think higher education needs to just let that grow nebulously in a classroom environment.
wow. Yeah, there are a number of experiences I can recall from when I was in college that, thank God, there was enough latitude for the experiences to kind of balance between the educational structure of the institution as well as the relationships that you could build. But I want to move on because we did ask you for some questions and you were quite gracious to give us some. So I want to get involved in a conversation that you would like to talk about. And then ultimately, as we begin to close our conversation, hear what you'd like to say because we are something to say. So, first question is, what is your favorite quote from anyone that you would really like to share?
There are quite a few. One that's most memorable, if I can get it simply to say, people might remember what you say, and often people might remember what you do, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And that's a quote by Maya Angelou. So
Uh,
I believe in making sure people know how I made them feel. I can say a lot of things, I can do a lot of things, but those people that know how I made them feel, and those people I know how they made me feel,
mm,
is more particular and special and endearing to my soul.
wow. Well, if anybody knows you, they know that that is truly the mantra of your life. So, because you certainly leave a lot of people with an incredible feeling, which is the essence of who you are. But all right, so I want to move on and talk about career. So, if you didn't have a career in education, what else would be your number one career option? And it's weird even having a conversation about career options with you because you seem to have it all together. But what would be your number one career option if it wasn't education?
I would be a pilot, Greg. I would fly DC-10, 747s. I would have flown the Concorde across the world if I could. I am fascinated with flight and that whole understanding of getting that however many ton plane off the ground, and the navigation it takes. Those people are so skilled. And every time I see a plane go over me, I if I'm in my yard, I stop
Hmm.
and I look up and I just look at it because I'm fascinated. So now I've been searching some friends of mine that, you know, in high places that know people. I want to get in the back of one of those freaking fighter jets, and I want to get in there and I want them to do the G-force and let me pass out. And guess what? If I pass out and die, I'm going to heaven. I'm done. Because to me, that understanding of flying an aircraft is second to none.
Wow. Well, there's still plenty of time to get your pilot's license.
Yeah, but I'm not flying one of those little Cessnas. No, no, no. I'm starting out in the F-16, okay?
I've always had that same interest in it, but I've always wondered what it must be like to be able to look at the world every day in an airplane. Like you're
Gotta
about
be
everywhere.
incredible.
Yeah,
Because Greg, when you and I travel, we're looking out the window.
right.
Like we're looking at the world, and then you take pictures, and then you end up in another country. Like that's just the epitome of joyfulness to me.
Wow. All right, so let's go on to the next one. So, if you had one dream that was guaranteed to come true, what would it be?
To end all hate. If I had one dream And I've grown from the, the 50s, the 60s up till now. I would end all hate everywhere, globally, because I see no sense of it. I don't. And I've come to this belief. I didn't start in this belief because life changes, right? So, you and Tom go to dinner with my wife and I because we're friends, so why hate on people when you don't know them? So if I had a dream, I wouldn't want money. I wouldn't want any of that for personal gain. I would want to end all hate in the world and then build a whole new world with people that just love each other globally. That would be my biggest dream.
Wow. All right. So before we kind of wrap up our conversation, I have one more question. It was interesting. When I saw this question, I immediately thought, well, of course he's going to want to start his own university. But anyway, here's the question. If there was one thing you wish you could do right now, what would it be?
To be honest, I would like to live in another country. I would really like to live in another country. And if you gave me choices, I'd probably have 3 or 4 where I'd enjoy. I think I would make the transition not smoothly, but if I could do anything right this minute, I would like to move to another country. There's too much bad news, too much killing, too much of everything. And we lead the world in those things. And we're the smallest population globally.
Right.
We're small. We lead in gun violence. We lead in prisons. We lead in hate. I just want to go, and it doesn't have to be an island, although I prefer it. Um, I would, I would, I would move to another country if I could leave right now and not have to look at the news and hear of all the things that happen in this country.
Well, I'm along that same line of thinking as I am leaving this country for a small little vacation tomorrow, but I can certainly appreciate that. All right, so our last and final question, and it was funny, I was looking at my list. I still have another 10, and we definitely don't have enough time to cover it,
Right,
but
right.
probably the most important one for something to say is that we really would like to know, what do you want to say? So as it relates to our podcast, here is a open lane for you to say something.
So, in growing up, your family influenced your religious decision, right? Your spiritual decision. And then as you get older, you try to figure out what's best. You may read, you may listen, you may worship, and then you start questioning, who the supreme being is. Is it God? Is it Allah? Is it a Buddha? Who is it? Or is it a he? Because it could be a she. We just don't know. So, whomever it is, this is my point. Whomever it is and whoever you believe in, I wish this supreme being could end all violence, all wars, all disagreements across this planet, this globe. So for those of us that do believe in a higher power, we should all try to pray for that to happen so that we have peace everywhere. This would be such a wonderful place. We're in the threat of global and nuclear wars with China and Korea and Russia. You know, Taiwan's scared of China. The Ukraine is scared of Russia. I mean, Europe is scared of Russia. So we end up being scared of, we say we're not, but no one wants a nuclear war. So for me to have something to say, I just wish that the Supreme Being would stop all of this. And if he or she or it or whatever can stop all of the global terror and wars, that is something that I have to say that I think most people think, but they won't say it. you're a devout Catholic, you're a devout Baptist, you're a devout Judaism, you're a devout Islamic Muslim person. All of us are thinking about the same things. We just don't communicate. So how do we do that? The only person I know that could do that would have to be a higher power, because the rest of us have tried this for years. Look at the Gaza Strip and Israel. That fight will never end. It'll never, ever end until somebody's, or if not everybody's dead. So somebody needs to step in, and no one can do it except the Supreme Being. That's what my belief is, and that's what I have to say.
Well, without any doubt, I knew that you were going to give us something that would be thought stimulating and a lot more substantive than just a surface interpretation of what not just life is, but what life can mean to each and every one of us. And sharing those insights are one of the reasons why I'm so glad that you were able to speak with us today, because your words really have a profound impact on your inner circle, and believe it or not, your outer circle as well. So it has been a pleasure to speak with you. And it's weird because we're doing it without a martini or anything along that line. I appreciate you spending a time with us on our show today. Thank you, Jeff.
Greg, I really appreciated this cathartic moment that we've had. You and I have had many of them, and we will continue to do it, outside of this format. But much respect for you, and I was happy to do this. When you asked, at first I was like, uh-oh. But now this was actually much more relaxing and much better than I thought it would be. So much respect.
Respect. Well, audience, that's a wrap for this episode of Something to Say. Stay tuned for more inspiring conversations with the voices of individuals from diverse backgrounds sharing their passion. And until next time, this has been Greg DeShields.
Thank you for tuning in to Something to Say. We trust you found some valuable insights and takeaways that can help you find your passion. Don't miss out on future episodes. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on your preferred platform. We value your feedback and suggestions, so let us know how we can serve you better. Keep the conversation going and stay inspired until we meet again. Take care and happy listening.